Hello, everyone. It's Tiffany, and I'm here with episode number 1 of Tiffany Spalding at Life in the Wick. And I just thought this would be a good episode to give you a little bit of background on where I am and what I'm doing now, and sort of lead you into the rest of Podcastville, I guess, for me. So I'm doing this both on video and on podcast. So if you are listening on a podcast, I may say something like thanks for watching or something like that. But so know that it is available on YouTube as a video and also on the podcast stations. The first thing I want to talk about is my biggest motivation for doing this. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. Let me give you the backstory on why it's called Life in the Wick, how that all happened. My husband and I moved in 2020 from the Pacific Northwest down to Arizona, and we live in this tiny town called Wickenburg. And when we decided to move here, I had come down, as many of you know, Park, my husband, has been retired for quite a while, and he was down here roaming around looking for potential locations, and he found Wickenburg. He called me and he said, you should come down and check this out. I'm not sure if you're going to like it. It's a tiny town. It might not be big enough for you. Now, his goal for a town for us was something with one stoplight or less. I only had a couple of requirements. The first requirement was I needed to be within an hour and a half of a major airport, because at that point I was still traveling quite a bit for work. And I wanted it to be warm enough to sit outside in a short sleeve shirt and eat dinner 7 months out of the year comfortably. And those were pretty much my only requirements, right? I wanted to be warm, and then of course I had to travel for work. So that was it. So he calls me from Wickenburg, and I come down and I check it out, and I absolutely love it. I mean, I just think this is a perfect little place for me. It's a beautiful little town. It's a tiny town. People are super friendly. It's about an hour and 8 minutes to the airport on a really good day, more closer to an hour and a half. So right in there for that target. And I fell in love with it. So we decided this is going to be our place, and started looking around for a house, found that, did those things. Well, I flew home back to the Pacific Northwest, and he stayed down here, and I got a phone call from him, and I was like, what are you doing? And he said, I'm at the Mecca, which is this darling little bar restaurant here in town. I'm at the Mecca. It's 75-cent wing night, and it's karaoke night. So I'm getting a cheap dinner, which my husband loves cheap things, and free entertainment. Life in the Wick is good, what he said to me. And I thought, I love that. I love that, Life in the Wick. It's so, it just kind of sums it up. So that's how we got to the name Life in the Wick, and the blog Life in the Wick, and the podcast Life in the Wick. That's how it all came to be. Okay, so let's jump into my first topic. And my first topic is going to be sort of something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is thinking about how I think. And this is something, and I guess an exercise, if you will, that I have practiced almost my whole life. I can't remember not doing it, right? So what does that mean exactly? It means that I regularly question my own thoughts. I used to have a sign over my desk in my old office that said, don't believe everything you think. And there's so much going on in the world, and it's so easy to just take some piece of information and say, okay, yes, I believe that, and get it into your head that that's the way that it is. And it's really not. There's so much that you can do about the way that you think, and just thinking about the way that you think will often lead you to these amazing revelations about what's happening in your life and why. Why is it happening? What's your part in it? How can you fix it? How can you change it? And sometimes you realize you can't fix it or change it. But for the most part, you absolutely can. And that's one of my goals with this whole podcast, is to talk to people about how they think. And the guests that come in and sit with me may absolutely agree with me on whatever it is that we're talking about. But I want to talk about the process of thinking. How did you think about that? And really inspire people to have great conversations with themselves as well as with other people, and really learn to quote Stephen Covey, seek first to understand and then be understood. And the crazy thing about that is that that can be a conversation between you and another person, or it can be a conversation that's happening within your own head. So asking yourself, why do I think that? Let me get a good understanding of why I think that. And is it good for me? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But that process of stepping back, stepping outside of your own self, I guess, and looking in is so incredible and so, for me, motivating and inspiring. Really helps me to kind of stay focused and be successful at different things. And besides that, it really helps me identify where I'm failing at things. And I think I have another good friend, Georgia, and one of our favorite quotes that we talk about all the time is that success is a bad teacher. You don't really learn a lot when you're successful, but boy, failure will teach you things all day, every day. So that's kind of a prime, I guess, topic for this podcast, for what I'm trying to accomplish here with Life in the Wick. And then I want to sprinkle in some really, really fun stuff. I've become a crazy, crazy cactus gardener. I love them. I don't know what it is. I think of them as my friends. They're pokey and a little bit surly, kind of like my husband. He's a little surly. I think I love them because cactus are so scrappy. Like, they're very survival. Like, everything about them is just so, so I've fallen in love with cactus. So I will share with you probably, I have shared here on if you look at the Life in the Wick blog, some of what I've done as far as cactus gardening goes. And it's an ongoing thing. As a matter of fact, my husband tried to encourage me to start a business planting cactus, creating cactus gardens for other people, because he's like, you are going to run out of space in our yard. You're going to need to do this somewhere else. So he's trying to motivate me to get out of our own yard, stop planting things. But I'm totally crazy about cactus. And then I have recently taken up golf, which, if you knew me 2 years ago and someone said Tiffany's going to take up golf, including my own kids and my husband and my mom, anyone, they would have said, no way. There's no way she's going to do that. Well, for some reason, that game has hooked me in. And if you want to talk about something where you fail all the time and you just keep going back for more, I mean, it's just brutal. It just, especially new. I'm sure some people get really good at it and they probably feel differently. But boy, it's a crazy game where you fail all the time and you sort of have to face that. And kind of the craziest thing about failing at golf is that it's all you. So you have nobody to look to but yourself in order to figure out why you're constantly failing. So it doesn't seem like that would be that motivational, right, to go back to something where you just constantly fail. But yeah, it's drawn me in. So yeah, I'm an addict. I guess that's all I can say. So you'll hear from some of the gals that I play golf with, and how thankful I am that they have taken me in as a not good golfer and allow me to play with them and just really have a great time, which leads me to the next thing where we talk about relationships as we get older, especially women. And I know a big majority of my audience is women. So if you're a younger woman, you have female relationships, but they change as you get older. And it's interesting as our lives. One of the things we're really good at doing as women is reinventing ourselves, right? We start as children, teenagers, and then we become workers or college students, and then we get in a career path, and then we may become a wife or partner, and then a mother, and then your kids go away, and now all of a sudden that role that you've had as a mother for 18 years disappears, and you are back to being a wife or partner and fulfilling that role. But then you have this opportunity to become your own self finally, without anybody else sort of needing you or depending on you. And that's great on one hand and a little bit scary on the other hand. So as women, it's a constant thing for us. We're constantly changing and evolving. And along with that, we tend to have, especially if you move, as I've done, big changes in friendships, because when you're in college, you have college friends. And then when you have kids, you have the parents of other kids your age become your friends. And then as the kids kind of disappear, and especially in the situation that I'm in where I've moved to a totally new place, now I have this whole other group of friends who will, as my friend Kate said to me the other day, most likely be the friends you have for the rest of your life, because we are sort of settled in, sort of hemmed in or tucked in to this life here. Most of us choosing like this is going to be our end spot for all intents and purposes. We'll stay where we are now. So developing those other relationships and sort of navigating that and how important they are, and thinking about those relationships, because this is really the first time that we get to choose our relationships and our interests and our hobbies and what we do, because we don't have those commitments that family and career bring for choosing those things. You're just open to choosing exactly what you want in friends. And yeah, it's really kind of cool. I mean, it's a great adventure. And then, of course, I have my husband, who some of you know. He's hysterically funny, very surly. I always say to people, if you don't know Park, you got to step back for a minute. Everything that he says is in humor, and some people don't take it as well as others, or they don't know how to take it, I guess. But here's an example. We will be somewhere, Home Depot, and I'll be looking at something on the shelf, like, I think I'm going to get that. And my husband, who's 6 feet tall, so he's significantly taller than me, I'm 5'4", he will grab my wrist and pull me away from whatever it is, and he'll say, "You don't need that." And then I will say to him, "Shut up, let me go." And then, which is all in like humor to us. It's all like fun. It's kind of the way we play with each other, I guess. And I always think at some point there's going to be someone standing there who looks at the situation and only sees that little pinch of the story and thinks that I'm in some kind of trouble. And I guess that boils down to the whole premise for this podcast, which is sort of like thinking about how you think and knowing the whole story, and that one key Stephen Covey line, seek first to understand and then be understood in all of those situations. And yeah, that really changes people's perspective, right? So when you see a little bit of something, you might interpret it differently than going out and looking for the whole story, for the big picture. And so we're going to talk a lot about that on so many levels, right? Friendships, relationships, work, changes in life, all of those things. So, all right. I think that I have bombarded you enough with the introduction to Tiffany at Tiffany Spalding, A Life in the Wick. I will look forward to sharing more with you and getting more topic-centric as we move through our next few podcasts. So please tune in, like, subscribe, do whatever you need to do so you can find out whenever we release a new podcast, because I really want to hear what you have to say. I want to know what your thoughts are. I want to know what your challenges are. And I want you to ask me some really great questions that make me think about how I think. Thanks for tuning in.